Welcome to a deep dive, into a system for creating training that actually works.
Okay.
Lean-ISD and the PACT processes.
Nice.
You might be prepping for a project or brushing up on L&D methodologies or just insanely curious about what makes for killer training.
Right.
So we'll be using Guy Wallace's book, Lean-ISD, and his School of PACT videos to kind of guide us today.
I think it's fascinating how often traditional training just misses the mark.
Yeah.
It can feel long and tedious and disconnected from the actual work you do.
Yeah.
It's a real missed opportunity.
Absolutely. And what I love about Lean-ISD is that it flips the script.
Yeah.
Instead of just churning out courses, it starts with a crucial question.
Yeah.
What performance gaps are we trying to close?
Right.
It's about impact, not just activity.
Precisely. And Lean-ISD kind of borrows principles from lean manufacturing
Okay.
to create training that's laser focused on performance improvement and built for speed and efficiency.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
The book even uses a manufacturing analogy. It compares training developers to manufacturers creating products for their customers, training programs for their customers who are the organizations and the learners themselves.
That's right.
So now the heart of Lean-ISD lies in these 5 PACT processes.
Yes.
And these processes are all about creating training that is, again, laser focused on improving performance and doing it fast.
That's right. The 5 processes are PACT analysis,
Okay.
curriculum architecture design, or CAD, modular curriculum development, MCD,
Gotcha.
instructional activity development, or IAD, and finally PACT project planning and management.
Okay, so it's not just a cute acronym.
Right. Yeah.
PACT actually stands for something.
That's right.
What does it stand for?
It stands for performance-based,
Okay.
accelerated, and customer/stakeholder driven.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's break this down.
Okay.
First up is PACT analysis, which seems like the foundation of the whole system.
Right.
So what happens in this phase?
So in PACT analysis, we lay the groundwork by building something called a performance model.
Right.
And it helps us compare the quote-unquote ideal performance for a specific job or task against the real performance that's happening, pinpointing the gaps.
I got you. So instead of just throwing training at a problem,
Right.
we first figure out exactly where the problem lies.
Precisely.
Okay, now the book mentions 3 types of performance deficiencies.
Yes.
DE, DK, and DI.
Yeah.
Can you unpack those for us?
Absolutely. So DE stands for deficiencies in the environment.
Okay.
Things like lack of resources, clunky processes, or inadequate tools.
Gotcha.
DK refers to deficiencies in knowledge or skills,
Okay.
the competencies people need to be effective.
Uh-huh.
And then lastly, DI refers to deficiencies in individual attributes or values, which might be better addressed through things like hiring practices.
So if someone is not meeting expectations because their computer keeps crashing, that's a DE.
That's a DE.
But if they're struggling because they don't know how to use a particular software program, that's a DK.
That's a DK. You got it.
Perfect. Okay, I'm starting to see how this works. And the book uses this great example called the most convenient store manager performance model.
Right.
And it breaks down a store manager's performance, highlighting potential gaps in each area,
Yeah.
like staff training or store operations.
Right.
And it categorizes them as DE, DK, or DI.
That's right.
So we've got these performance gaps laid out.
Yep.
How do we figure out what knowledge and skills people actually need to close these gaps?
Right.
This is where the training part comes in, right?
This is where the training comes in. This is where the knowledge skill matrices come into play.
Okay.
They build on that performance model, and they pinpoint the specific knowledge and skills needed for each area.
Gotcha.
So you're not just teaching random things. You're teaching exactly what's needed.
Okay. And this is, I'm guessing, where it gets super detailed, right?
It can get very detailed.
Yeah, I was looking at the knowledge skill matrix form in the book, and there are so many categories.
There are 17 predefined categories, actually,
Wow.
like company policies and procedures or professional technical. But the beauty is that you can customize these for each project.
So we're creating this really targeted plan here.
Yes, very targeted.
But before we get too deep into building new training from scratch,
Right.
what about existing materials? Do we just scrap everything and start over?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
A key step in PACT analysis is actually assessing existing training materials.
God, yeah.
It's all about efficiency.
Yeah.
Why reinvent the wheel if you don't have to?
Right.
The book encourages us to ask some key questions.
Okay.
Does existing training still meet the current needs?
Mm-hmm.
Should we modify it, keep it as is, or toss it in the recycle bin?
Okay, so it sounds like PACT analysis is a pretty comprehensive process.
It is.
But who's doing all this work?
Right.
Is it just one lone wolf instructional designer buried under a mountain of data?
That's a great question, and actually collaboration is key here.
Okay.
PACT projects involve different teams with specific roles and responsibilities.
Okay.
You have the project steering team making big decisions and owning the project.
Uh-huh.
Then there's the analysis team who are responsible for defining those performance requirements and outlining those crucial knowledge and skills.
Okay.
And later on, the design and development teams come into play.
Gotcha. So I'm sensing a theme here. Teamwork.
Yes, teamwork.
And you mentioned involving customers and stakeholders earlier.
Right.
Are they part of every step in the process?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Stakeholder involvement is woven throughout the entire PACT process.
Okay.
It ensures everyone feels heard, helps us create truly relevant training, and ultimately leads to better buy-in and outcomes.
Okay. It sounds like a well-oiled machine.
It is a well-oiled machine when done correctly.
Yeah. And it's not just about putting together a PowerPoint and calling it a day.
No, not at all.
So speaking of structure, I noticed something called MCD design outputs in the book.
Yeah.
What are those all about?
MCD stands for Modular Curriculum Development, and the design outputs reflect this modular approach.
Okay.
They create a multi-level hierarchy, starting with the overall training event, like a course. Then we have T&D modules, which are reusable chunks of content that can be mixed and matched.
Nice.
Within each module, there are lessons.
Yeah.
And within each lesson, there are individual instructional activities.
So it's like those Russian nesting dolls.
Yes.
Breaking down a complex project into smaller and smaller pieces, each with a specific purpose.
Exactly. And each level has both specs and maps.
Okay.
Specs are detailed descriptions of the content and objectives, while maps are visual representations of how information and activities flow.
Gotcha, like a blueprint or a flow chart.
Yes, of a blueprint or a flow chart.
Okay, so the specs tell you what to build, and the maps show you how it all fits together.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to get the big picture here.
Good. It's a lot to take in, but it's all in service of creating the most effective training possible.
All right, so we've got the structure and the content mapped out.
Yeah.
But what about the actual learning activities? How does lean-ISD approach those?
That's where IAD, instructional activity development, takes center stage. This is where we breathe life into those lesson plans and create engaging learning experiences.
Gotcha. So we're moving from blueprints to actual construction.
Exactly, we are.
All right, spill the tea.
Okay.
What kind of learning activities are we talking about?
So the book describes three main types: information, demonstration, and application.
Okay, so information activities would be like lectures, readings, videos.
Exactly.
Okay.
Then demonstration activities show learners how something is done, either through live demonstrations or recorded examples.
Gotcha. And application activities are all about getting hands-on and putting that knowledge into practice.
You got it.
Okay.
This can be anything from exercises and games to simulations and even real work assignments.
Oh, wow.
The book provides some concrete examples: knowledge tests, performance tests, simulation exercises, and performance aids. There's a lot of variety.
Yeah.
And the focus is always on making these activities directly relevant to the real world.
So it's not just about absorbing information, it's about actually being able to use it.
Exactly.
So we've covered analysis, design, and development.
Yes.
But even with the best plan in the world, training can fall apart without proper project management, right?
Absolutely. And that's where our fifth PACT process comes in: PACT project planning and management.
I bet this is where all the Gantt charts and deadlines come in.
All the Gantt charts and deadlines, all the fun stuff.
Yeah.
So the book provides guidelines for estimating cycle times and costs for different sizes of lean-ISD projects, whether they're small, medium, or large.
Gotcha.
And a big part of this is effective communication planning up front and clear communication throughout the project.
And I'm guessing, based on everything we've talked about so far, that stakeholder involvement is key here as well.
You're catching on stakeholder involvement is always key.
Okay.
The book emphasizes that stakeholder involvement is key to minimizing risks and avoiding rework down the line. It's a team effort all the way.
So all of this sounds fantastic in theory.
Right.
But what are the actual benefits of using a lean-ISD approach?
That's a great question.
What's the payoff for all of this effort?
Well, first and foremost, lean-ISD is laser-focused on performance improvement.
Okay.
It's not about delivering training for training's sake. It's about making a real difference in how people perform on the job.
That's a huge point. It's about impact, not just activity.
Exactly. And because it focuses on efficiency and eliminating waste,
Yeah.
it can also lead to some serious cost and time savings.
That's music to any organization's ears.
Music to their ears, exactly.
Absolutely. What about buy-in from leadership and the learners themselves?
Because stakeholders are involved from the beginning. Lean-ISD tends to lead to much higher buy-in across the board.
And that buy-in probably translates to higher engagement during the training itself.
Exactly. Plus, the training is hyper-relevant because we've been so meticulous about identifying and addressing specific performance gaps.
So it's a win-win situation.
It is.
More effective training, less time and money spent, and happier stakeholders all around.
Happier stakeholders all around you.
Got it. This has been an incredible overview of lean-ISD and the PACT processes.
Yes, it has.
What stands out to you from what we've covered so far?
What really strikes me is how systematic the entire approach is.
Yeah.
Lean-ISD doesn't just focus on the big picture. It provides a roadmap for every step of the journey, from planning and analyzing to designing, developing, and managing the entire project. It's incredibly thorough.
I completely agree. And what I find so exciting is that it's not just theoretical.
Right.
The book is packed with tools and templates to help you actually put the PACT processes into practice in your own work.
Absolutely. It's meant to be a practical guide.
I'm feeling inspired. I'm ready to go out and start building some performance models and knowledge skill matrices.
Yes.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, there's still so much more to explore.
That's right.
We've only just begun to delve into the world of lean-ISD.
We've only just begun. Stay tuned, because in the next part of our deep dive, we'll be taking a closer look at some of the specific tools and techniques used in Lean-ISD, including how to run those all-important team meetings and how to handle the tricky task of deciding whether to buy or build training modules.
All right, stay with us.
Yes, stay tuned. Welcome back to our deep dive into Lean-ISD and the PACT processes.
You know, before the break, we were talking about how much this approach really values teamwork.
Yes.
And getting everyone on the same page.
It's not just about instructional designers working solo. It's about bringing the right people together at the right time. Subject matter experts, stakeholders, the whole gang, to make sure that the training truly hits the mark.
Speaking of getting everyone on the same page.
Yes.
Let's talk about those team meetings we touched on earlier.
Okay.
Specifically, the analysis team and design team meetings.
Right.
How do those work in practice?
Those meetings are where the magic happens. They're designed to be these very well-structured sessions where you're drawing out all the right information, making sure that everyone's voice is heard, and getting everybody aligned on what needs to happen.
The book actually gives some great tips on how to facilitate these meetings effectively.
Right.
It's more than just keeping everyone on topic, right?
Exactly. It's about tapping into the expertise of each person in the room.
Yeah.
And making sure that everyone feels comfortable sharing their insights. The facilitator's role is crucial here.
Now, the book mentions this concept of design by influence.
Yes.
Which I found really interesting, especially since it's contrasted with, design by committee, which can sometimes feel like a recipe for disaster.
Right, because with design by committee, you often end up with this mishmash of ideas that don't quite work together. But with design by influence, the instructional designer acts as a facilitator, guiding the team through a very structured process.
Okay.
But still drawing on their knowledge. It's a delicate dance. But when it works, it's beautiful.
So the instructional designer is like the conductor of an orchestra. They're guiding the flow, ensuring that everyone is playing their part. But they're also listening and adapting to the unique sounds each instrument brings.
That's a great analogy. And just like a conductor needs a deep understanding of music, the facilitator needs a specific skill set to run these meetings. Effectively, the book calls this PACT. PACT.
I love it when things have catchy names.
Right.
What does that entail?
Well, it's a mindset, really. It's a way of approaching these meetings.
Okay.
Think of it like driving a car. The facilitator is the one behind the wheel, steering the process, but the team's in the passenger seat, providing directions and feedback along the way.
Okay, so it's not about being a dictator, it's about being a skilled guide.
Exactly. The book even lists specific communication behaviors crucial for PACT facilitation.
Okay.
Things like seeking information, testing, understanding, and even defend attack.
Defend attack, that sounds a little intense for a training meeting.
It's not about being aggressive. It's more about constructively challenging ideas and assumptions, poking holes in things, to ensure that the team arrives at the best possible solutions.
Yeah.
It can get passionate sometimes, but it's all in the spirit of creating truly effective training.
So it's about healthy debate, pushing each other to think critically.
Exactly. And one technique I found particularly interesting is this idea of being redundant by design.
Redundancy, isn't that usually a bad thing?
It can be.
Yeah.
But in this context, it's about strategically repeating key points to make sure that everyone is truly on board and understands.
Gotcha.
It caters to different learning styles and keeps everyone in the loop.
That makes sense. Sometimes you need to hear something a few times for it to really sink in.
Exactly. And sometimes it helps to have those who grasp things quickly,
Yeah.
explain them to their peers using language and examples that resonate better with them.
Love that. Turn those quick learners into peer teachers.
Exactly.
It's all about creating a collaborative learning environment, even within the team meetings themselves.
Absolutely. And another key element of PACT logic is this simple but powerful idea. Write it down, then discuss it.
So instead of just throwing ideas around, we capture them on a whiteboard or a flip chart first.
Exactly. It helps to get those abstract thoughts out in the open where everyone can see them and react.
It's like giving those ideas a physical form so people can really grapple with them.
Exactly. And the act of writing it down often forces people to clarify their thinking and articulate their thoughts more precisely.
Okay, so these team meetings are clearly a crucial part of the lean-ISD puzzle.
They are.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about the actual training materials themselves.
Okay.
We briefly touched on this idea of make versus buy.
Yes.
When it comes to developing modules.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through that?
This is one of those big decisions in any training project. Do we build something custom or do we buy something off the shelf?
Right.
Lean-ISD provides a framework for making those decisions strategically, not just based on what's easiest or cheapest.
I can imagine that the buy option is tempting, especially when you're under pressure to get things done quickly.
It is, and sometimes it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
The book calls this the shortcut method of acquisition.
Okay.
And it basically says if the need isn't mission critical, or if you have a powerful stakeholder who has already decided what they want,
Right.
it might be best to just buy something that's good enough and move on.
But I'm guessing that's not always the ideal path.
You're right. If the training needs to address a critical business need,
Okay.
or if those off-the-shelf solutions don't quite align with your performance goals,
Yeah.
then custom development might be the way to go.
But custom development can be a lot more expensive and time-consuming.
It can be.
How do you balance that with the need for speed and efficiency?
That's where all that upfront work we do in the PACT analysis phase comes in handy.
Okay.
We've already pinpointed exactly what needs to be trained, and the modular design approach allows us to create reusable components. It's like building with Lego blocks.
I see. So even though it's custom, you can still be pretty efficient.
Exactly. Plus, sometimes there simply isn't anything out there that meets your unique needs.
Right.
There's a story in the book about a client who needed a 3-week presentation skills course, which is much longer than the typical off-the-shelf program.
Wow.
But it turned out these folks were going to be presenting to Congress.
Wow. Talk about high stakes.
Talk about high stakes.
I can see why a generic presentation skills course wouldn't cut it in that scenario.
Exactly. It's a good reminder to thoroughly analyze those performance requirements and understand the context before making any decisions about buying or building.
This conversation is making me realize how much strategic thinking goes into creating training that actually works.
It does.
It's not just about throwing content together and hoping for the best.
No, not at all. It's about having a clear process, being aligned on your goals, and making thoughtful decisions at every stage, which is what lean-ISD is all about.
This has been incredibly insightful. We've gone from team dynamics and facilitation techniques to the nitty-gritty of make versus buy decisions.
It has been a lot.
What stands out to you as we wrap up this part of our deep dive?
It's the focus on performance, for
Yeah.
sure. Lean-ISD isn't about creating training for the sake of training. It's about aligning everything with the organization's goals and equipping people with the skills they need to actually perform their jobs better. It's a very strategic mindset shift.
I agree. And for me, it's the emphasis on collaboration and communication. You can have the best tools and templates in the world, but without that human element,
Right.
without that shared understanding and commitment, it's all going to fall apart.
Absolutely. It's about bringing people together,
Yeah.
tapping into their expertise, and creating something truly effective as a team.
Well said. But as much as we've covered, we've really only scratched the surface. There's still so much more to explore in the world of lean-ISD.
There is. Stay tuned, because in the final part of our deep dive, we're going to zoom out and look at the bigger picture, how lean-ISD fits into the overall ecosystem of an organization. Those systems and structures that impact how training gets done and how it ultimately drives results.
Welcome back to our deep dive into lean-ISD.
Yes.
We've covered the core principles,
Right.
the PACT processes, team dynamics,
Oh.
even those make or buy decisions.
Right.
But now let's step back and look at the bigger picture.
Okay.
How does all of this fit within the overall structure of an organization?
Right. The book uses this concept called the T&D systems view.
Okay.
And they use this clock face analogy to represent the different systems at play in training and development. Can you break that down for us?
Yeah, walk us through that.
So imagine a clock face.
Okay.
At the top, we have systems for governance and advisory, setting the strategic direction.
Gotcha.
Then moving clockwise, you have systems for needs analysis,
Okay.
planning, design, and development,
Yep.
deployment and delivery, evaluation of impact, and then back to governance for continuous improvement.
So it's this ongoing cycle.
It is an ongoing cycle.
Always iterating and evolving.
Always evolving.
But where does lean-ISD fit into all of this?
So lean-ISD primarily focuses on the design and development stages of that cycle.
Okay.
But its influence extends far beyond those specific steps. Its emphasis on performance improvement aligns perfectly with the goals of the entire T&D system.
So it's not just a standalone method, it's a philosophy that can really permeate an organization's approach to learning.
Exactly. Lean-ISD provides the tools and processes to build effective training.
Yeah.
But those tools are most effective when they're used within a system that values performance, efficiency, and always striving to improve.
It's like having a top-notch chef, the best ingredients and amazing recipes, but you also need a well-equipped kitchen to bring it all together and create a truly exceptional meal.
I like that. And what the T&D systems view highlights is that you can't create effective training in a vacuum.
Right.
It needs to be integrated with other systems in the organization.
Yeah.
Like performance management, talent development, and even strategic planning.
And I can see how ignoring those connections could lead to training that misses the mark, not aligned with the organization's priorities, or failing to address those real performance gaps we talked about earlier.
Absolutely.
This makes me think about how training is often seen as a cost, something that drains resources, but when it's done right, it can actually be an engine for growth and innovation.
That's the power of lean-ISD. It shifts the focus from just doing training to actually improving performance and achieving real business results.
Yeah.
It's about return on investment.
We've talked a lot about the benefits for the organization, but what about the learners themselves? How does lean-ISD impact their experience?
One of the core principles of lean-ISD is customer focus.
Okay.
And in this case, the learners are our customers. So this approach is all about creating training that's relevant, engaging, and valuable to them.
It goes back to those different types of learning activities we discussed, not just lectures and tests, but opportunities for hands-on practice.
Yes.
Real-world application.
Yes.
And even simulations.
Exactly. And because the training is directly aligned with their jobs, learners are more likely to feel it's worth their time and energy.
Yeah.
They're not just learning for learning's sake. They're gaining skills they can use right away.
And that sense of relevance can make a huge difference in terms of their motivation and engagement?
Absolutely. When learners feel the training is valuable, they're more likely to remember the information and actually apply it in their day-to-day work.
So it's a win-win for everyone involved.
Yes.
The organization gets better performance, better business results, and the learners get valuable skills that help them succeed.
That's the beauty of a well-designed and well-implemented learning and development system. It's an investment that pays off for both the individual and the organization as a whole.
This deep dive has really been eye-opening.
It has.
Lean-ISD is more than just a set of tools and processes. It's a philosophy, a way of thinking about learning and development that can transform how organizations approach training.
It's about shifting the focus from activity to impact, from cost to value, from just delivering training to driving real performance improvement. And that's a shift that everyone can benefit from.
I'm feeling inspired to take what we've learned and look for opportunities to streamline things, engage stakeholders, and create training that makes a real difference in my own work.
That's fantastic. And remember, lean-ISD is a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
It's about continuous improvement, always experimenting and looking for ways to do things better, more efficiently, and with a laser focus on performance.
Well said. As we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with a sense of excitement for the possibilities.
Me too.
Lean-ISD is such a powerful framework for creating training that's not only effective,
Right.
but also truly meaningful for learners.
Yes.
It's about equipping people with the skills they need to thrive in their work, and that's a mission worth pursuing.
I couldn't agree more.
So as you embark on your own Lean-ISD journey,
Yes.
embrace those principles.
Experiment.
Experiment with the processes.
Yes.
And never stop seeking ways to create those transformative learning experiences.
I love that.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Lean-ISD.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it insightful and inspiring.
Yeah.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving for excellence.
Yes, strive for excellence.